There's a reason why some people can walk into a room, say a single sentence, and suddenly everyone listens. It's not luck, it's not magic, it's presence, the quiet kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. The Stoics mastered this centuries ago. They understood that true articulation isn't about using big words. It is about speaking with calm authority, the kind that silences noise without raising a voice. Think about it. How often do you find yourself knowing exactly what you want to say, but the words just don't come out right? You stumble, over-explain, or rush to fill the silence. But a Stoic pauses. They choose their words like a sculptor shapes marble, precise, intentional, unforgettable. Today you'll learn how to speak like that, with clarity, command, and unshakable calm. Because when you speak like a Stoic, you don't just talk, you influence. If you're ready to sharpen your voice and mindset like a true Stoic, make sure to like this video, subscribe to MR Red Frost, and tap the bell icon. Not for algorithms, but for your own evolution. Every week we dive deep into Stoicism, Sigma discipline, and the art of mental dominance. Now let's begin the transformation. They say the tongue has no bones, yet it can break a man. The Stoics understood this long before motivational speakers turned it into a quote. To them, words weren't just sounds, they were reflections of the mind, the audible proof of one's discipline. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Let your words be few, but well chosen." And that wasn't advice about speaking less, it was a reminder that clarity is strength. Look around today. People rush to talk, to fill silence, to prove they know something. But the Stoic, he waits, he observes, he measures the weight of his words before he releases them, because he knows once they re-spoken, they can't be taken back. When you speak, you're not just transferring information, you're revealing your mental order, or your lack of it. Every ramble, every over-explained sentence quietly signals to the world, this person hasn't mastered their mind yet. Stoicism teaches that speech mirrors thought. If your words are scattered, so is your thinking. If your tone is shaky, so is your inner peace. So when you learn to speak clearly, what you're really doing is training your mind to think clearly. That's why the greatest Stoics were not loud men. They were calm, deliberate, and exact. Epictetus, born a slave, rose to become one of the most respected philosophers in Rome, not because he shouted his wisdom, but because every word he spoke carried precision and poise. Imagine standing in a crowd where everyone's talking, arguing, debating, chaos everywhere. Then suddenly one person speaks. Their tone is measured, their words slow, their message simple, yet the entire room goes silent. That's Stoic articulation. It's the rare kind of communication that commands attention without asking for it. You see, when you remove emotion from your delivery, your words cut sharper. When you strip away unnecessary filler, your message becomes undeniable. People start to listen. Not because you demanded respect, but because you embodied it. But let's make this practical. How do you start speaking like a Stoic? It begins with awareness. Before you speak, ask yourself, do I understand what I'm about to say? Is it necessary? Is it aligned with who I want to be? If the answer isn't clear, stay silent. Not out of fear, but out of strength. Silence isn't weakness, it's a pause of power. Then, when you do speak, simplify. Don't try to sound intelligent, try to sound understood. The Stoics never used words to impress. They used words to express truth, clean, stripped of ego, aimed like an arrow. The modern world rewards loudness, but respect follows clarity. Your goal isn't to speak more, it's to speak better. To choose words that reflect discipline, not desperation. Every sentence you say should serve a purpose, to teach, to express, to move someone, or to stay unspoken if it doesn't. Because the Stoic doesn't waste breath. He knows that when he speaks, his words are a mirror of his mind. and that mirror must stay clear. So as Mr. Redfrost would say, learn to sharpen your silence first. Then when you do speak, let your words carry the weight of calm power. Silence, the most underestimated weapon of the strong. In a noisy world where everyone is desperate to be heard, to be noticed, to be right, silence has become rare. But to the Stoic, silence isn't emptiness, it's strategy. Marcus Aurelius often wrote in solitude, not because he disliked people, but because he understood something few ever realize. You can control your speech until you can control your silence. Think about it. How many times have you said something you didn't mean, just to fill an awkward pause? How often have you spoken out of emotion, then later wished you'd stayed quiet? That's not weakness, it's human. But the Stoic rises above that impulse. He pauses, breathes, and listens, not just to others, but to the storm inside him. In that stillness, he observes his thoughts, filters the noise, and decides which words deserve to live. That pause, that heartbeat of silence before speech, that's where power hides. People mistake quick replies for intelligence. They think talking faster means thinking faster, but look closely. The most respected minds speak slowly. They pause before answering. They hold the silence, and everyone else waits for their words. That pause is not hesitation, it's control. It says, I'm not ruled by emotion, I choose when to speak. It's the difference between a person who reacts and one who responds, and in that difference lies respect. Here's something you'll notice. When you master silence, others begin to fill it, often revealing more than they intended. You learn more by saying less. You gain power without lifting a finger, and that's the Stoic paradox. The quieter you become, the louder your presence feels. Epictetus taught this through discipline. He told his students, let silence be your general rule, or say only what is necessary. Not because silence is safe, but because silence sharpens speech. When you don't speak often, you learn the value of words. You weigh them, you taste them before letting them go, and when you finally do speak, people lean in, because they know your words aren't wasted. But silence isn't just about staying quiet. It's about listening deeply, not listening to reply, but to understand. The Stoic listens to others, yes, but also to his own mind. He hears his insecurities trying to shout. He hears his ego wanting the last word, and he chooses silence instead, because he knows the man who controls his tongue controls his destiny. So how can you build this Stoic silence in your own life? Start small. Pause for 2 seconds before replying in any conversation. When emotions rise, breathe. When anger tempts you to speak, wait. Let silence carry the weight your words can't yet handle. And when you finally decide to speak, your words will no longer be reactions, they'll be weapons of reason. That's the art of Stoic silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of mastery. As Mr. Redfrost always says, silence isn't weakness, it's training. Because in a world that shouts, the man who pauses is the one who commands. Most people speak to convince, but the Stoic speaks to convey. There's a difference, and it's massive. Persuasion chases approval. Precision commands it. When you speak to persuade, you're trying to pull others toward your view. When you speak with precision, you stand so clearly in your truth that others lean in naturally. That's what Stoic communication is. Clarity without chaos. The Stoics didn't believe in dressing thoughts in fancy language. Seneca said, say what you mean and mean what you say. Simple, clean, razor sharp. In a world where people fill sentences with noise, like, basically, the Stoic chooses restraint. Each word is deliberate, each pause intentional. Each idea lands like a stone dropped into still water, quiet, but impossible to ignore. Here's the hidden truth. Words don't impress people. Clarity does. You could use poetic language, technical terms, or complex arguments. But if the listener walks away confused, you've lost. Precision is about making people feel they understand you completely, even when the idea is deep. That's power. Think of it this way. A dull blade can't cut. No matter how hard you swing, a sharp blade doesn't need force. It slices effortlessly. That's what your words should do. And here's where Stoicism and the Sigma mindset overlap. The Sigma doesn't chase validation. He lets truth speak for itself. He uses few words, but those words hit like impact points. That's the balance of logic and presence, the foundation of commanding speech. Let's make this real. Imagine two people giving advice. One floods you with emotion, trying to convince you they're right. The other looks at you calmly, says one clear sentence, and it stays in your mind for days. That's precision. That's Stoic power. But here's the twist. Precision isn't cold. It's intentional emotion. The Stoic doesn't strip away humanity. He refines it. He knows when to be direct, when to pause, and when to emphasize. That rhythm, the balance of calm tone and deliberate impact, creates respect without demand. Because precision isn't about sounding robotic. It's about sounding certain. When you're certain of your thoughts, your speech becomes effortless. Your sentences tighten, your tone steadies, and suddenly people start saying, I don't know what it is about you, but when you talk, it just makes sense. That's the invisible art of Stoic communication. So how can you practice it? Think before you speak. If the idea isn't clear in your head, it won't be clear when it leaves your mouth. Cut filler words. They're the weeds choking your message. Choose simple over complicated. Power lies in simplicity, not in trying to sound smart. End strong. Don't trail off. Land your sentence like you mean it. When your words are clean, people start trusting you, because clarity signals competence, and competence earns respect. So, don't chase persuasion. Don't talk to impress. Talk to express what's true, and let silence carry the rest. As Mr. Redfrost would say, precision is power. The sharper your words, the quieter your need for approval. The Stoics believed that the moment emotion owns your voice, your words stop belonging to you, and that's when power slips away. Think about the last argument you had, the frustration rising, the pulse quickening, words spilling faster than you could think. At first it felt like release, but then came the regret. You said too much, or said it wrong. That's what happens when emotion drives speech. You lose precision, you lose calm, and worst of all, you lose respect. Marcus Aurelius warned, if someone can provoke you, realize your mind has become their servant. That line hits harder than any motivational quote ever could. Because every time someone makes you react, they own a piece of your peace. The Stoic refuses to give that away. He practices a different kind of strength, the one that hides behind composure. He can feel anger, but not be ruled by it. He can face insult, but answer with reason. He can stand in chaos and still sound like order. That's the power you feel when someone speaks with calm intensity, not coldness, but control. Emotional control doesn't mean suppressing how you feel. It means understanding it before you express it. You don't have to be emotionless, you just have to be emotionally disciplined. Picture this. Someone attacks your opinion in a meeting. The average person reacts instantly, defensive, loud, rushed, but the Stoic pauses, breathes, and speaks slowly. He says something like, that's an interesting point. Let's look at it from another angle. No aggression, no panic. Just calm, measured response. And what happens next? The energy in the room shifts. Everyone senses control, and suddenly you're leading the conversation without even trying. Here's what most people don't realize. When your emotions rise, your vocabulary shrinks. Your brain goes into defense mode, and your clarity fades. That's why angry people repeat themselves. They're not thinking, just reacting. But the Stoic, he reverses that process. He breathes first, speaks second. He gives space between stimulus and response. that sacred pause where wisdom lives. Seneca once said, "He who is angry is no longer master of himself." To the Stoic, that's the greatest loss. Not the argument, not the outcome, but the loss of mastery. When you keep composure while others lose it, people notice. They start trusting your judgment. They start respecting your presence because your calm becomes their anchor. That's leadership, the silent kind that doesn't demand authority. It earns it. So how do you train this control? Breathe before every response. A single deep breath can reset your tone. Detach the ego. It's not about proving you rewrite. It's about finding what is true. Use fewer words under pressure. Short sentences sound steadier, more confident. Never match another's chaos. If they raise their voice, lower yours. It breaks the emotional pattern instantly. And here's the paradox. The calmer you sound, the more impact your words carry. The less you try to dominate, the more people feel your dominance. That's emotional stoicism, a power built not on control over others, but control over yourself. So next time someone tries to provoke you, smile internally, because you'll know the truth. You can lose a battle if you never step into it emotionally. As Mr. Redfrost would say, hold your fire behind your silence, because real power isn't T in the shout, it's S in the restraint before it. Respect isn't something you ask for, it's something you radiate. The Stoics never chased validation. They didn't beg to be seen. They became so grounded, so composed, that their very presence demanded acknowledgement. Think of it. When Marcus Aurelius walked into a hall, he didn't have to announce himself. His calmness was the announcement. No loud entrances, no exaggerated gestures. Just stillness that somehow filled the room. That's what commanding respect truly means. Not performance, but presence. Presence is the quiet authority that makes people listen before you even speak. It's built, not bought. And it's made from the sum of every Stoic trait you've learned so far. Restraint, silence, precision, and emotional control. When you embody those, you don't need theatrics. You don't need validation. Your energy speaks first. Here's a truth the world doesn't tell you. People respect stability more than superiority. They're drawn to those who don't flinch, who don't overreact, who seem centered no matter what's happening. You want to command a room? Don't rush to speak, observe. Don't mirror chaos, steady it. Don't try to impress. Express grounded certainty. Your posture, tone, and timing. These speak louder than your words. A Stoic's presence says, I'm not here to prove, I'm here to be. That quiet energy shakes people more than any dramatic display ever could. Let's test this idea. Picture two leaders. One walks in, slamming the table, demanding attention. The other enters silently, looks around, waits for the room to settle, and only then begins to speak. Who do you remember more? Who commands respect? The answer is clear. Respect doesn't come from volume. It comes from gravity. To build that kind of presence, you need three things. Self-awareness. Know how you move, breathe, and speak. You can't project calm if you're unaware of your own tension. Consistency. Don't switch personas. The Stoic is the same in silence as he is in speech. Steady, real, grounded, intent. Before every word, ask, what do I want to leave behind in this moment? Because presence isn't just about being noticed. It is about leaving a trace of influence that stays after you are gone. When people remember your calm, your clarity, your tone, that's when you've spoken like a Stoic. When you walk away and the silence you leave behind still feels heavy, that when you commanded respect. So remember this, you don't need to perform. You don't need to prove. You just need to be. As Mr. Redfrost says, speak less, mean more, walk slow, burn bright. The world listens to the man who doesn't beg to be heard. If this message hit you deeper than just the surface, then you're already part of something rare, a movement of calm strength, of quiet warriors, of thinkers who refuse to shout. because their silence already echoes louder. If you felt that, don't just scroll. Hit that like button, subscribe to MR Red Frost, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it, not because of views, but because of value. This channel isn't for everyone. It's for the few who understand that real power starts within. You've just learned how to speak like a Stoic. Now go live it. This is Mr. Red Frost, signing off with fire and silence. Stay calm, stay sharp, stay legendary.